In the realm of behavioral health, where emotions can run high and situations can escalate rapidly, mastering de-escalation techniques is not just a desirable skill, it's an absolute necessity. These techniques are our tools for navigating the unpredictable waters of human behavior, helping us to create a haven of safety and support for those in our care. When we, as professionals, are equipped with the knowledge and skills to de-escalate volatile situations, we are better prepared to ensure the well-being of individuals who may be experiencing a crisis, as well as the safety of those around them. Imagine a scenario where a patient in a psychiatric ward is experiencing a severe panic attack, their anxiety reaching a fever pitch. Or picture a student in a school hallway, overwhelmed by anger and on the verge of a physical altercation. In these critical moments, the ability to de-escalate the situation can be the difference between maintaining a safe environment and witnessing a descent into chaos. Our actions, both verbal and nonverbal, carry immense weight in these delicate situations. A calm voice, a reassuring touch, and an empathetic ear can often soothe frayed nerves and pave the way for constructive dialogue. Conversely, a harsh tone, dismissive gestures, or a lack of empathy can further inflame tensions and exacerbate an already volatile situation. That's why mastering de-escalation techniques is not just about learning a set of skills. It's about cultivating a mindset of empathy, respect, and unwavering commitment to the well-being of those entrusted to our care. Our behavior has a profound impact on those around us, particularly in emotionally charged situations. Think of it as a ripple effect, where our actions, like pebbles tossed into a pond, create outward spreading circles of influence. When we respond to volatile situations with calmness, empathy, and understanding, we cast ripples of tranquility that can help to soothe and stabilize the emotional atmosphere. Conversely, when we react with anger, frustration, or impatience, we risk generating ripples of negativity that can further escalate the situation. This phenomenon, known as emotional contagion, highlights the interconnectedness of our emotions and the powerful influence we exert on one another. Just as a single flame can ignite a wildfire, a single act of aggression or hostility can quickly spread through a group, creating an environment of fear, anger, and unrest. On the other hand, a single act of kindness, compassion, or understanding can have the opposite effect, diffusing tension, fostering connection, and creating a space where healing and growth can occur. This understanding of emotional contagion underscores the importance of self-awareness in de-escalation. By being attuned to our own emotional states and reactions, we can better manage our responses and avoid inadvertently escalating a situation. When we model calmness, empathy, and respect, we not only create a more positive and supportive environment for others, but also inspire them to respond in kind. The ultimate goal of de-escalation is twofold: to ensure the safety of all parties involved and to reduce tension, paving the way for constructive dialogue and problem solving. By mastering the art of de-escalation, we empower ourselves to navigate the complexities of human behavior with grace, compassion, and unwavering commitment to creating a safer and more harmonious world. And more. In the heat of a volatile situation, it's easy to become swept up in the whirlwind of emotions and miss the underlying message someone is trying to convey. Active listening, however, provides a lifeline, a way to cut through the noise and truly connect with the individual in distress. It's about shifting our focus from formulating a response to genuinely understanding the other person's perspective, their fears, their frustrations, and their needs. Active listening involves a multifaceted approach. Firstly, it requires giving the individual our undivided attention. This means putting aside distractions, making eye contact, and using open body language to signal that we are fully present and engaged in the conversation. Secondly, active listening involves demonstrating empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It's about conveying, through our words and actions, that we genuinely care about what the person's going through and that their feelings are valid, even if we don't necessarily agree with their actions. Thirdly, active listening involves reflecting back what we've heard to ensure clarity and understanding. This means paraphrasing the individual statements, asking clarifying questions, and summarizing key points to ensure that we're both on the same page. By reflecting back what we've heard, we demonstrate that we're truly listening and that we're invested in understanding their perspective. Mastering active listening takes practice and patience, but the rewards are immeasurable. When we truly listen to someone in distress, we create a space of safety and validation, which can be incredibly disarming and can help to de-escalate the situation significantly. It's about building a bridge of understanding, allowing the individual to feel heard, acknowledged, and respected, even amidst the storm of their emotions. While our words hold immense power, our nonverbal communication, our body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions often speaks louder than words, particularly in emotionally charged situations. In the realm of de-escalation, mastering nonverbal communication is just as crucial as choosing our words carefully. It's about aligning our body language with our words, creating a sense of congruence that conveys authenticity and builds trust. Imagine approaching someone who is agitated while keeping your arms crossed, your facial expression tense, and avoiding eye contact. Your words might express concern and a desire to help, but your body language conveys a completely different message, one of defensiveness, judgment, or even hostility. Such incongruence can instantly erode trust and escalate the situation further. Instead, adopt a calm and open body posture. Stand or sit with your arms relaxed at your sides, your shoulders lowered, and your body facing the individual. Maintain gentle eye contact, not staring them down, but conveying that you are present and attentive. Avoid sudden movements or gestures, as these can be perceived as threatening or aggressive. Even seemingly insignificant actions, like taking a step back to provide more personal space, can communicate respect and a willingness to de-escalate the situation. Remember, our nonverbal cues are constantly being interpreted, often subconsciously, by those around us. By mastering the art of nonverbal communication, we can create an environment of safety, trust, and respect, paving the way for meaningful dialogue and de-escalation. Section 3. Verbal de-escalation. Choosing words wisely. In the midst of a volatile situation, our words can either be weapons that escalate the conflict or tools that diffuse the tension. Verbal de-escalation is about choosing our words carefully, crafting them with intention, and delivering them in a way that promotes calmness, understanding, and ultimately resolution. It's about speaking to the heart of the matter, addressing the individual's emotions and concerns with empathy and respect. One of the most effective verbal de-escalation techniques is to speak in a calm, clear, and steady voice. Avoid raising your voice, even if the other person is yelling, as this will only serve to escalate the situation. Maintain a neutral tone of voice, free of sarcasm, judgment, or condescension. Remember, our tone of voice can convey a wealth of emotions, and in a tense situation, it's essential to project calmness, understanding, and a genuine desire to help. Use simple and direct language, avoiding jargon, technical terms, or complex sentence structures. In a heightened emotional state, people often struggle to process information quickly, so keeping our language clear and concise can help to avoid misunderstandings and prevent the situation from spiraling further out of control. Additionally, steer clear of confrontational or judgmental statements, as these will likely trigger defensiveness and escalate the situation. Instead, focus on using I statements to express your own feelings and needs, without blaming or accusing the other person. For instance, instead of saying, "You're being completely unreasonable," try saying, "I'm feeling a little overwhelmed right now. Can we please talk about this calmly?" By taking ownership of our own emotions and using respectful language, we create a more conducive environment for de-escalation and constructive dialogue. Section 1. Emotional contagion. The ripple effect of our emotions. Imagine a stone being tossed into a still pond. The impact creates ripples that spread outward, influencing the entire surface of the water. Similarly, our emotions, particularly in charged situations, create ripples that impact those around us. This phenomenon, known as emotional contagion, highlights how our feelings and behaviors can trigger similar responses in others. Consider a scenario where a healthcare worker responds to a distressed patient with anxiety and frustration. The patient, already on edge, senses the worker's unease and mirrors those emotions, escalating the situation further. This contagious effect can quickly transform a tense situation into a volatile one, hindering effective communication and problem solving. Conversely, when we maintain a calm and composed demeanor, we cast a different kind of ripple, one of stability and reassurance. A calm voice, steady eye contact, and relaxed posture can have a soothing effect, signaling to the other person that we are in control and there is no immediate threat. This, in turn, can help lower their defenses and create an environment more conducive to de-escalation. Understanding emotional contagion is crucial for anyone working in behavioral health or dealing with individuals in crisis. Recognizing that our emotions impact others, just as theirs impact us, empowers us to make conscious choices about the energy we bring to every interaction. By mastering our own emotional responses, we can positively influence those around us, fostering a sense of safety and paving the way for constructive engagement. Section 2. Modeling behavior. Setting the tone for interactions. In any interaction, but especially in volatile situations, we are constantly sending messages through our behavior. Whether we realize it or not, we are modeling behaviors that others, consciously or unconsciously, pick up on and often emulate. This principle of modeling behavior underscores the profound influence we have on the emotional climate of any given situation. Think of a teacher facing a disruptive student. Responding with anger or frustration only reinforces the negative behavior, creating a power struggle that further disrupts the learning environment. However, if the teacher remains calm, sets clear boundaries, and addresses the student with respect, they model a more appropriate way to handle frustration and conflict. This principle extends beyond the classroom, applying to healthcare settings, workplaces, and even our personal relationships. When we consistently model respect, empathy, and self-control, we create a ripple effect, encouraging others to mirror those behaviors. Over time, this can contribute to a more positive and supportive environment where conflict is addressed constructively and individuals feel safe expressing their needs. Modeling desired behavior goes beyond simply acting calm in the face of chaos. It's about embodying the values of respect, empathy, and understanding in all our interactions. It's about demonstrating through our actions that there is a better way to communicate and resolve conflict. A way that prioritizes dignity, compassion, and the well-being of everyone involved. Section 3. Building trust. The foundation for de-escalation. Imagine trying to build a house on a foundation of sand. The structure would be inherently unstable, susceptible to the slightest tremor. Similarly, attempting to de-escalate a volatile situation without a foundation of trust is like building on shaky ground. Trust is the bedrock upon which effective de-escalation is built, enabling open communication, vulnerability, and ultimately resolution. Building trust, however, is not an instantaneous process. It requires consistency, authenticity, and a genuine desire to understand the other person's perspective. When we show up consistently in our interactions, keeping our word and following through on our promises, we begin to establish a sense of reliability. People are more likely to feel safe and open up when they believe that we are who we say we are, and that we will do what we say we will do. Authenticity is equally crucial. Attempting to de-escalate a situation while masking our true feelings or intentions can be easily detected and often backfires. People can sense when someone is being insincere, and it can erode trust rather than build it. Being genuine in our concern, even if we don't condone the behavior, goes a long way in establishing a connection and fostering a sense of safety. Finally, demonstrating a genuine desire to understand the other person's perspective is paramount in building trust. Active listening plays a vital role here. By truly hearing their concerns, acknowledging their feelings, and validating their experiences, we create a space where they feel seen, heard, and understood. This, in turn, can lower defenses, reduce tension, and pave the way for a more collaborative and productive interaction. Section 1. Mark's meltdown. A classroom in crisis. The bell signaling the start of fifth period had barely stopped echoing when the tension in Mrs. Johnson's usually boisterous English classroom began to rise. Mark, a lanky 15-year-old known for his quick wit and even quicker temper, sat hunched at his desk, a storm cloud gathering on his face. His normally jovial demeanor had been replaced by a brooding silence, punctuated by the tapping of his pencil against the desk, a staccato rhythm that grated on everyone's nerves. Mrs. Johnson, a seasoned educator with a keen eye for her students' emotional states, immediately sensed that something was amiss. Mark had been struggling lately, both academically and personally, and the pressure seemed to be taking its toll. His grades had been slipping, his attendance was erratic, and his usual enthusiasm for class discussions had dwindled to sullen disinterest. The cause, Mrs. Johnson suspected, was a complex cocktail of adolescent angst, social pressures, and a home life that, from the whispers in the teacher's lounge, she knew was far from stable. As the class progressed, Mark's agitation grew. He fidgeted in his seat, muttered under his breath, and shot glares at anyone who dared to make eye contact. The tipping point came when Mrs. Johnson called on him to answer a question about the symbolism in the novel they were studying. Mark exploded, his voice rising in a crescendo of anger, as he declared the question stupid and the entire lesson a waste of time. His outburst sent a ripple of shock through the room, silencing the usual classroom chatter and turning all eyes towards him. Mrs. Johnson, though taken aback by the intensity of Mark's outburst, knew that reacting with anger or punishment would only escalate the situation. Years of experience had taught her that behind every outburst, every act of defiance, was a student crying out for help, a young person struggling to navigate the choppy waters of adolescence. She needed to de-escalate the situation, not with force, but with understanding and empathy. She needed to reach Mark, not punish him. Section 2. Calm in the chaos. De-escalation in action. Taking a deep breath to steady her own emotions, Mrs. Johnson addressed Mark in a calm, even voice. "Mark," she began, "I can see that you're upset, and that's okay. It's all right to feel frustrated, but it's not okay to disrupt the class." Her voice, though firm, held a note of genuine concern, a subtle shift in tone that did not go unnoticed by the now silent classroom. The other students, sensing the shift in dynamics, turned their attention from Mark to Mrs. Johnson. Their expressions a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Can you tell me what's going on?" Mrs. Johnson continued, her gaze steady, but not confrontational. She knew that giving Mark a chance to voice his frustrations, to feel heard and acknowledged, was crucial in de-escalating the situation. Pushing him to explain his outburst in front of the entire class, however, would likely have the opposite effect. She needed to create a safe space for him to open up, a space free from judgment or ridicule. "Let's step outside for a moment," she suggested, her tone gentle but authoritative. "We can talk about what's bothering you, and we can figure out a plan together." She gestured towards the classroom door, an invitation for Mark to join her in a more private setting. The change in environment, she knew, could be just as important as the words they exchanged. Removing Mark from the spotlight of his peers, from the judgmental stares and hushed whispers, would help him feel less defensive and more open to communication. Mark, his chest still heaving with the remnants of his outburst, hesitated for a moment, his gaze darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. Then, with a resigned sigh, he pushed back his chair and shuffled towards the door, his shoulders slumped, his head bowed. As they stepped out into the hallway, the relative quiet of the empty corridor, a stark contrast to the bustling classroom they had just left, Mrs. Johnson placed a reassuring hand on Mark's arm. "It's okay to not be okay, Mark," she said softly, her voice a calming presence in the sudden stillness. "We all have bad days. Let's just breathe for a moment, and then you can tell me what's going on." Her touch, light but firm, conveyed a message of support, a silent promise that she was there for him. Not as a disciplinarian, but as a guide, a confidant, an ally in the often turbulent world of adolescence. a night in the ER. Sarah's anxiety reaches a boiling point. The fluorescent lights of the emergency room buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the scene unfolding in Cubicle 4. Sarah, a young woman barely in her 30s, paced the small space restlessly, her breaths coming in short, shallow gasps. Her eyes, usually bright and full of life, were wide with panic, darting around the room as if searching for an escape route that didn't exist. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor beside her only amplified the sense of urgency, the feeling that something was terribly wrong. It had all started earlier that evening, a creeping sense of unease that quickly escalated into a full-blown panic attack. Sarah, no stranger to anxiety, had initially tried to manage the symptoms on her own, using the breathing exercises and mindfulness techniques she'd learned in therapy. But tonight, the familiar coping mechanisms seemed woefully inadequate against the tidal wave of fear that threatened to drown her. Her husband, Mark, a calming presence in her often chaotic world, had rushed her to the nearest emergency room, his face etched with a mixture of concern and helplessness. He knew that Sarah needed medical attention, that she was in the throes of something far beyond their ability to manage at home. But as he watched her from the plastic chair in the corner, his heart ached for her, for the invisible torment that had such a visible hold on her. The triage nurse, a kind-faced woman with a soothing voice, had taken one look at Sarah and immediately recognized the severity of her distress. She'd whisked her back to a cubicle, her touch reassuring, her words a balm on Sarah's raw nerves. "Don't worry, honey," she'd murmured, her voice a beacon of calm in the storm of Sarah's anxiety. "We're going to take good care of you. Just breathe." But despite the nurse's reassurances, Sarah's anxiety continued to escalate. The waiting, the uncertainty, the sterile environment of the ER, it was all too much. She felt trapped, suffocating under the weight of her own fear, her body poised on the edge of a full-blown panic attack. Empathy in the emergency, de-escalation, and compassionate care. Nurse Ramirez, her name tag reflecting the warmth in her eyes, entered the cubicle with a quiet confidence that immediately put Sarah slightly more at ease. She'd dealt with countless anxious patients before, and she understood that sometimes the most powerful medicine wasn't found in a syringe or a pill bottle, but in the simple act of human connection. "Sarah," she began, her voice soft but steady, "I'm Nurse Ramirez. I understand you're feeling anxious right now, and that's completely understandable. You're in a safe place, and we're going to help you feel better." Her words, free of judgment or dismissal, acknowledged the reality of Sarah's experience, validating her feelings without minimizing her distress. "Can you tell me what's happening?" she continued, her tone gentle and encouraging. "Is there anything specific that's making you feel this way?" She knew that giving Sarah an opportunity to voice her fears, to articulate the often intangible sensations of anxiety, could be therapeutic in itself. It was about creating a space for Sarah to be heard, not just as a patient, but as a person. Sarah, struggling to find words to express the maelstrom of emotions swirling within her, managed a shaky, "I can't breathe. I feel like I'm going to pass out." Her voice, barely a whisper, conveyed the sheer terror that gripped her. "I know it feels that way, Sarah," Nurse Ramirez said calmly, "but I promise you, you're going to be okay. You're not going to pass out. Let's try some breathing exercises together. It will help you relax." She positioned herself at the edge of Sarah's bed. her posture open and non-threatening, her gaze steady but kind. "Just follow my lead," she instructed gently. "Take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it for a count of 4, and then slowly exhale through your mouth." As Sarah mirrored Nurse Ramirez's slow, deliberate breaths, she felt a sliver of control returning, a sense of agency amidst the chaos. The tightness in her chest, though still present, began to ease slightly, replaced by a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, she could weather this storm. Nurse Ramirez, sensing Sarah's subtle shift, continued to guide her through the breathing exercises, her voice a soothing presence in the otherwise sterile environment. She knew that Sarah's anxiety wouldn't magically disappear, but with patience, empathy, and a few simple de-escalation techniques, they could navigate this crisis together. The weight of the moment. Navigating high-stress situations. Mastering de-escalation techniques is like acquiring a superpower. The ability to navigate the choppy waters of human emotions with grace and composure. But even superheroes face their kryptonite, and in the realm of de-escalation, high-stress situations can test the mettle of even the most seasoned professional. Picture the scene: alarms blaring, a patient in crisis, colleagues scrambling, and a sense of urgency permeating the air. In these moments, our own adrenaline surges, mirroring the heightened emotional state of those around us. It's precisely in these pressure cooker situations that our de-escalation skills are put to the ultimate test. One of the biggest challenges we face in high-stress situations is maintaining our own emotional equilibrium, while simultaneously attempting to de-escalate someone else's crisis. It's like trying to hold a steady hand while standing on a rocking boat. It requires a conscious effort to stay grounded and centered amidst the turbulence. Our natural instinct, when confronted with aggression, fear, or anger, is to respond in kind, to mirror the emotional intensity we're witnessing. But reacting emotionally only fuels the fire, escalating the situation and potentially putting ourselves and others at risk. So how do we maintain our composure when the pressure is on? The key is to cultivate a sense of inner calm, a reservoir of tranquility we can draw upon when the going gets tough. This involves developing self-awareness, recognizing our own triggers and stress responses, and adopting coping mechanisms that help us stay grounded in the face of adversity. Deep breathing exercises, mindfulness practices, and even brief moments of solitude can provide a much-needed respite from the chaos, allowing us to return to the situation with renewed focus and composure. Furthermore, it's crucial to remember that we are not immune to the effects of stress. Just because we are trained to handle volatile situations doesn't mean we're invincible. It's okay to acknowledge our own limitations, to seek support from colleagues or supervisors when we need it, and to prioritize our own well-being. After all, we can't pour from an empty cup. Taking care of ourselves, both physically and emotionally, is essential for showing up as our best selves in high-stress situations. Section 2. When walls go up. Dealing with resistance and non-cooperation. De-escalation at its core is about building bridges of understanding, creating a space for connection and communication, even amidst the stormiest of emotions. But what happens when the person we're trying to reach is resistant to our efforts, their defenses firmly in place, their words laced with hostility or defiance? This resistance, this unwillingness to engage in dialogue, can be one of the most challenging aspects of de-escalation, testing our patience, our empathy, and our resolve. Imagine trying to reason with someone who is convinced that the world is against them, their perception clouded by paranoia or suspicion. Every attempt at logic, every gesture of goodwill is met with skepticism, hostility, or outright rejection. It's easy to feel defeated in these moments, to question the effectiveness of our efforts, and to succumb to the temptation to respond with frustration or anger. But it's precisely in these moments of resistance that our de-escalation skills are needed most. The key to dealing with resistance is to approach the situation with unwavering patience and empathy. Remember, behind every act of defiance, every outburst, every wall of resistance is a human being struggling with their own internal battles. There's always a reason for the resistance, even if it's not immediately apparent. Perhaps they've been hurt before, betrayed by those they trusted, or simply feel overwhelmed and misunderstood. Instead of meeting resistance with force, we need to respond with compassion and understanding. This means actively listening to their concerns, even if they are expressed angrily or irrationally. It means validating their feelings, acknowledging their perspective, even if we don't agree with their actions. It means refraining from judgment or criticism, which will only serve to strengthen their defenses. Sometimes, the most effective approach is to simply be present with the person, offering a calming presence without demanding immediate compliance. This can mean sitting in silence with them, offering a tissue or a glass of water, or simply acknowledging their distress without trying to fix it. Remember, de-escalation is not about winning an argument or forcing someone to change their behavior. It's about creating a space where they feel safe enough to let their guard down, to open up, and to begin the process of healing. Even with the best intentions and a deep well of empathy, navigating the complexities of human behavior in volatile situations can be challenging. It's like embarking on a journey without a map, compass, or any prior knowledge of the terrain. We might stumble upon the right path occasionally, but without adequate preparation, our efforts to de-escalate situations can be inconsistent and, at times, even counterproductive. That's why equipping ourselves with the right tools and knowledge is crucial for successfully navigating the unpredictable landscape of human emotions. One of the most effective ways to prepare for the unexpected is through regular de-escalation training. This training should not be a one-time event, but rather an ongoing process of learning, practicing, and refining our skills. Think of it as a martial art for the mind, where we hone our techniques through repetition and receive guidance from experienced instructors. These training sessions provide a safe space to explore different de-escalation strategies, practice responding to various scenarios, and receive feedback from peers and trainers. Role-playing and simulations are particularly valuable components of de-escalation training. They allow us to step into simulated real-life situations, putting our skills to the test in a controlled environment where mistakes carry no real-world consequences. Imagine practicing how to respond to an agitated patient in a simulated hospital room, complete with medical equipment and the background noise of a busy ward. Or consider role-playing a scenario where a student is experiencing a meltdown in a classroom setting, with peers observing and providing feedback. However, Mastering de-escalation techniques goes beyond simply learning a set of scripts or responses. It requires developing cultural competence, the ability to understand, appreciate, and interact effectively with people from diverse backgrounds and cultures. This means recognizing that what might be considered a calming gesture in one culture could be interpreted as offensive or disrespectful in another. It's about understanding that communication styles, emotional expressions, and even perceptions of personal space can vary widely across cultures. Working in fields where de-escalation is a regular necessity, such as healthcare, education, or social work, can be both rewarding and emotionally taxing. We dedicate ourselves to helping others navigate their darkest moments, often absorbing their stress, their anger, and their pain as our own. Without adequate support and self-care practices, the constant exposure to emotionally charged situations can lead to compassion, fatigue, burnout, and even vicarious trauma. Imagine a sponge constantly submerged in water. Over time, the sponge becomes saturated, unable to absorb any more liquid. Similarly, without opportunities to wring ourselves out, to release the emotional burdens we carry, we risk becoming overwhelmed, depleted, and unable to provide the compassionate care that drew us to this work in the first place. That's why prioritizing our own well-being is not a luxury, but a necessity, essential for our own mental health and for our ability to effectively support others. One of the most crucial aspects of self-care is recognizing the early warning signs of burnout, emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and a decreased sense of personal accomplishment. Ignoring these signs is like ignoring the flashing red lights on our car's dashboard. Eventually, the engine will overheat and we'll be left stranded. It's vital to pay attention to our own emotional temperature gauge, recognizing when we need to take a step back, recharge, and engage in activities that bring us joy and rejuvenation. Equally important is having a strong support system in place. Trusted colleagues, supervisors, or mentors who understand the challenges we face and can offer a listening ear, words of encouragement, or simply a safe space to vent our frustrations. Seeking professional supervision or counseling can also be immensely beneficial, providing us with an objective perspective, coping strategies, and a safe space to process the emotional toll of our work. Furthermore, having clear de-escalation protocols in place can significantly reduce stress and provide a framework for action in volatile situations. These protocols, developed collaboratively by staff and administrators, should outline specific steps for responding to various levels of escalation, ensuring consistency in approach and minimizing ambiguity in the heat of the moment. Throughout this training, we've explored the crucial role de-escalation techniques play in creating safer, more supportive environments for individuals in crisis and for those who care for them. Like skilled artisans, we've examined the tools of our trade: active listening, nonverbal communication, and carefully chosen words that soothe rather than inflame. We've delved into the science behind emotional contagion, recognizing that our demeanor can either escalate tension or foster a sense of calm. Remember those moments when someone's anxiety or anger felt palpable, threatening to hijack the room's emotional atmosphere. By mastering our own responses, we can shift that dynamic, becoming anchors of stability in the storm. Picture yourself in those scenarios now, armed with the knowledge and techniques to navigate those choppy emotional waters. Envision yourself responding with a calmness that belies the inner pressure. Your words carefully chosen to build bridges rather than walls. Think back to Sarah's panic in the bustling ER, her fear as real as the beeping monitor by her bedside. Imagine yourself as Nurse Ramirez, your touch conveying reassurance, your voice a beacon of calm amidst the chaos. Or picture Mark, the frustrated student on the verge of boiling over, mirroring the instability he feels at home. Envision yourself as Mrs. Johnson, the teacher who sees beyond the outburst to the hurting child within, offering a lifeline of understanding and support. These case studies aren't just stories. They are reflections of the very real challenges we face in our work. They remind us that behind every behavioral crisis is a human being grappling with overwhelming emotions, desperately seeking to be seen, heard, and understood. Mastering de-escalation techniques is not merely about acquiring a set of skills. It's about embracing a philosophy of care that prioritizes empathy, respect, and the inherent dignity of every individual. It's about recognizing that even in the most challenging moments, our actions have the power to either escalate conflict or pave the way for understanding and resolution. Imagine the ripple effect if we all committed to embodying these principles in our interactions. What if every classroom became a haven for emotional safety, where students felt comfortable expressing their needs without fear of judgment? What if every healthcare setting prioritized compassionate care, where patients felt heard and respected, even in the midst of their most vulnerable moments? Creating this more compassionate world begins with each of us. It starts with a conscious choice to approach every interaction, every challenging situation, with empathy and a genuine desire to understand. It means recognizing that behind every outburst, every act of defiance, every wall of resistance is a human being longing for connection, for validation, for a sense of belonging. As you leave this training, carry these principles with you. Practice them in your interactions with colleagues, friends, family, and even strangers. Embrace the challenges that inevitably arise as opportunities for growth, recognizing that every interaction, no matter how small, has the potential to create a ripple effect of compassion that extends far beyond ourselves. Remember, mastering de-escalation techniques is not a destination, but a journey, an ongoing process of self-reflection, learning, and growth. It's a journey worth taking, not only for the sake of those entrusted to our care, but for the well-being of our communities and the betterment of our world.